All right, well, I guess we'll call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a sign-in sheet for anybody that just walked in the door. Yep.
There's more chairs up front here too, guys.
It's like church.
Church, you don't get to bring out your own.
Front pews left. All right, here we go. Make a motion to approve the agenda. So,
No changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
second. Okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the previous minutes? Did you look them over, Teresa?
I did. I read them all. They look very good. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we're gonna go to public comment, and we'll start with Corey Johnson. Come right up here, please. We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay. I did email the copy. You guys see the copy?
I got it right here.
Okay. A hard copy would be nice.
So my name is Corey Johnson. I live in Preston on Johnson Lane. I was born here. I've lived here most of my life. I'm a private citizen. I'm here because my vote didn't count in the 2020 election. Because of that, I want to fix what's broken in our elections. And this is one of the first areas we can fix that with polling pads. So my technical background is I work for a very large software company called SAP. They're based in Germany. They're 125,000 employees. I've been in IT and cybersecurity for 30 plus years. I guess I would be considered a subject matter expert in the common world for technology and security, and I hold multiple certifications along with a master's in software engineering degree. So I recently learned that there would be polling pads potentially used in Houston County. So these are the registration pads that are checked in when you come to vote. And I would like to bring up a lot of the cybersecurity threats associated with those pads and essentially ask for the local commissioners to vote to not use those going forward. And by Minnesota statute, you guys have the authority to do that.
Excuse me, Corey, do you mind just sitting down because you'd be closer to the speaker? And that helps me to hear better, and the rest of the people that are on.
Be able to hear you better if you were closer to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So the polling pads were purchased. They were very expensive devices. They are connected to the internet. So you essentially subscribe to this third-party service from a third-party company. All of your voter data, your personal information, your voting history gets uploaded to that service. They control it, they see it. Anyone with access to that service sees that. They have the ability to see then the real-time data coming in from the elections. So essentially each precinct in real time, when somebody walks through the door and they mark you as coming in as voted, they can see that. They can also see your voting history, party affiliation, et cetera. So it's a very easy way to track real-time data of what's the turnout in the precincts on election day. It allows for same-day registration, meaning that anyone within the system can actually even activate or add voters to the registration system on the fly. Your personal data is uploaded there, stored there, and processed, and there is no certification for these polling pads. I think the vendor was actually in a couple weeks ago and even admitted as much for that. By Minnesota statute, you still have to have paper registrations on premise in case the polling pads don't work. The polling pads are very expensive and not cost effective when you compare it to paper rolls. they allow for super precincts, and they essentially remove the local oversight of the county and the local clerk. And the training and ability to properly use these devices would be called into question, especially given the technology savviness of a lot of poll workers at those precincts. So in summary, they're directly connected to the Secretary of State, to the internet, to the vendor. They're live on the internet. They're not certified. They're very expensive, and they allow for same-day registrations. And essentially, a lot of nefarious things could go wrong with these pads. So I would ask that we shouldn't use these in Houston County. And by Minnesota statute 20658, it does outline that commissioners would have the ability to may provide the use of an electronic voting system. So you also have the ability to not use the electronic voting systems. So I would recommend that these are not used in Houston County. It will simplify things. It will better secure things. The risks around data access, security, authorizations to the data, nefarious actors, misuse, abuse are all significantly increased with the use of a single centralized, non-transparent system and process. And with that, I would yield to any questions.
Why would it be hooked up to the internet?
Because they ask you to upload all of your voter data to this third-party company called No Inc. So they host a service called ePulse, and you must connect the pads to upload all the data and then download the data locally to the iPads.
There's no way of disconnecting it during the process of voting?
No, there is not.
Well, I think Corey, you've provided us with some pretty good information here. We don't have it on the agenda to do any action today, so. And we try to limit for public comment, questions back and forth, but we appreciate you coming in, and we'll look this over. We'll have it up for discussion, I'm sure, and you know, this resolution that you came up with.
Yeah, as far as the procedure, I'm not an expert there.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
looked online and
Yep.
copied the templates.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
All right.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Any more public comment before we move on?
Morning.
Morning.
I'm Jill Diana, and I reside in Sheldon Valley in Houston. Happily reside there for 40 years. It's a wonderful place. And I'm here today as a very grateful library patron. When I was trying to think about what I would say in my 5 minutes with all of you this morning about what I value about libraries in our county, you can well imagine I had a lot of things going on through my head.
That was quick.
So what we all do these days is we kind of go to the internet to look up things and see if maybe other people have said things and put it more eloquently than I could ever express myself. And lo and behold, I found a great YouTube video from 1969 when Fred Rogers, remember Mr. Rogers? You bet. That all of your children grew up with Mr. Rogers. When Fred Rogers went before Congress.
I grew up with Fred Rogers.
Did you? Okay,
Yes.
yes. Well, very good. Eric, you're a little younger than I am. So in 1969, Fred Rogers went before Congress, and he was requesting funding for public broadcasting services. And he, like I am right now, was a little shaky, a little nervous. It's hard to go and appear when you've got lots of cameras on you and everything else. But he talked about the importance of public television, and in 1969, that was just beginning. And he explained the positive impact that PBS had on children and families, and he asked Congress to demonstrate something that he called an expression of care. And today, that's what I'm asking of you as our Houston County commissioners, to demonstrate that same expression of care that I know, those of you who I've spoken to, I know care deeply about literacy in our county. I am one of the estimated 18,000 residents who are privileged to have access to library services located in La Crescent, Hoka, Caledonia, Houston, and Spring Grove. I was scared to death I'd forget one of those and then I'd be in Dutch. So in turn, I also gain membership in these libraries with my other fellow citizens connected to the regional resources through CELCO. Talked about, I feel privileged to have that. And why do I use the word privileged? Because we are very fortunate to live in communities and a county and a country that values literacy and education. We well know that this is not the case in other countries. And if I can just add a little aside, it's particularly not the case for people who look like me, girls and women. In the United States, we know that the heart of democracy lies in free public access to information. And this really, at the most basic level, is the foundation of our library system. And I know all of you know this, and I appreciate your patience while I lay it out there. It helps me establish why I'm so passionate about this. I know that all of you value our local libraries, and your expression through care, through your past funding, is deeply appreciated by myself and many, many of the people that I know that use the libraries on an almost daily basis. Through your support and willingness to collaborate with our cities and townships, our libraries have evolved and grown, and we've learned important lessons. We've learned, and particularly what I'd like to express today, we've learned that lots of books are lent, and there are lots of programs for children and adults, but there's something even more important that's formed over time. What has created and what we've all worked together on behalf of all of our citizens is community. Community in the truest sense of the word. Our libraries are community hubs that are available to everyone. During the day, the evenings, and the weekends, our local libraries provide safe, welcoming space open to all people. We cannot minimize the importance of what this means for our county. It means that visitors to our communities will learn all sorts of wonderful things about Houston County that they didn't know before. They'll find out how much we have to offer. And frequently, you'll see folks from out of town stopping in, asking our librarians questions, directions. I'm wondering if any of you have seen this really cool, wonderful book. This is a book, I'll show it to everybody behind me. This is a book about libraries in the state of Minnesota. And if you look really closely, that picture is our very own Houston Library in Houston, Minnesota. I can't think of any better marketing for our county than to be on the front page of a book that's circulated all over. This high level, am I past my 5 minutes? Can I
Just, you're almost done.
Okay,
Just
I
finish
am.
it up.
I'll cut to the chase. This high level of community means that teachers seeking resources for all their classrooms will receive immediate assistance. It means that joy is created through intergenerational events. It means that children in need of a kind voice will find comfort. Where else in our county does a 5-city system of interconnected resources available day, night, and on the evenings exist? Much like that old saying from Cheers, the TV show, you want to go where everybody knows your name? That's our libraries. If I could ask for 30 more seconds, I would just like to go on to say, how do we sustain and grow our libraries? First and foremost, we make a commitment to strong, sustainable services by valuing our library directors who work tirelessly to lift us up. I didn't realize it, but today, I didn't find this out till yesterday. Today is National Library Worker Day. And for decades, wonderful Houston County Library staff have created a strong foundation for our communities. Some of you sitting up there might even know a few of those librarians. I know that you do. And I hope that you will take time to thank them for their service today. I was going to ask some of the librarians behind me to stand up and be acknowledged, but I know that their focus is working hard and not being celebrities. So I'm not going to do that now. But in closing, aren't you glad I didn't make it stand? Okay, in closing, back in 1969, remember Mr. Rogers asking that Congress demonstrate an expression of care for their libraries? That's what I'm asking for you, for all of us, 18,000 of us who reside in this county. Please demonstrate your expression of care by supporting our library system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, I'm sorry one other time.
No, that's fine.
Okay, any more public comment? Okay. We'll start moving on. So we'll do the consent agenda. So everybody want to change anything on the consent agenda for right now? Or? Anything that they want to change?
I just want to comment that we're losing Heather Myrie of Public Health and Audrey Stagemeyer from our health educator, and they've been really one of our top excellent employees in that field. They've been through a lot of work and during the COVID years. It was a tough job. They had to implement guidance from the state. And not all the time where that made sense to a lot of people, but they did it and related to the public, and that's a tough job. And they did an excellent job. I think the highlight of their time is when they worked hard to put on the vaccine clinics in Houston County. So I think they should be commended for their work. So it's sad to see him go. Heather's been here for 21 years and Audrey's 5.5.
Mhm. With regard to items 7 through 12, is somebody here that's going to represent John Puglisi? I mean, those are all his items if we have any questions.
He's online.
You have a question, Commissioner?
Just a question with regard to the guardianships. These are all standard policies?
These are amendments to existing contracts because we made an adjustment upward of what we pay guardians, individual guardians per month. We went from $120 a month to $136, I believe.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Somebody want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
So moved.
I'll say.
Okay, we had a motion in a second. Any more discussion? All right.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is. Action items.
Start with them first.
Do a couple action items, or should we?
We could do the first two.
Okay. Consider approving renewal of the 2022 ABC Woodland contract for collection and processing of recyclable materials. Martin,
contract for ABC Woodland, and with a little bit of negotiation, we came up with an agreement on it. I had Sam review it, and he was okay with the contract language much as is. And the employee they came in and they wanted a $5 an hour raise, and then they also wanted him to be a permanent employee. And we explained to him how the process worked and that, and then we countered at half that, and they agreed to the $2.50 an hour. What it will entails is it's about anywhere between $1,700 to about $3,000 a year more for that person to get that for the $2.50. And it goes exclusively to the person, not to any more administration or anything like that. So other than that, the contract's virtually the same as previous years. And we appreciate their work and what they do.
So the variation from 17 to 3,000 is because of hours or,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
29.5. It's not full time.
okay.
That varies from month to month.
Yeah, it does. And I picked the low and I picked the high to
Okay.
to fit it into that range, worst case. So they pay him sick leave, they pay him vacation and all these other things that factor in that we're not paying for. So that comes out of that extra part that they have, so.
Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the ABC Woodland contract.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the contract. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 2, consider approving the 2022 feedlot annual report and financial report, authorized signatures.
Morning.
Morning.
So as I do every year, I guess I just was gonna bring forward our annual review that we did with MPCA. As we've kind of discussed with other things in our delegation agreement and everything, our bare minimum requirements from the state are that we inspect 7% of our feedlots a year. We did meet that requirement this year with the help of Winona County. On top of that, we did, there were 2 feedlot permits for freestall. One was a barn replacement and the other one was an additional freestall. But aside from that, there wasn't a lot of just normal training. And outreach was still limited this year just with COVID early on. And then staffing limitations here later in the year. So overall, though, we did meet all of our obligations to the MPCA.
So the 2 feedlot expansions were Olson and Hoshite, probably.
No, Hoshite was an expansion, and then we had just a replacement of a freestyle barn that included no expansion.
Okay, that must have been the previous year then. Okay.
Yeah, last year or the year before maybe.
So Winona County's, we're no longer working with Winona County for
Correct, that was at the end of the year.
end of the year.
Yeah, we
Okay.
plan to do all the work in house this year.
And according to the letter from MPCA, everything was acceptable. They wrote a good letter of recommendation, I guess, for lack of a better word. Everything was on, which was good. Made them happy.
What discussion?
It's a good report.
I move to approve the report and authorize signatures as needed.
I'll second it.
A motion and seconded to approve this annual report. Any more discussion? Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we will go to the library.
Yeah, why do I get the feeling? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
6 against 5 now, boys.
Get all of us.
Good morning, Chair Myrie, Commissioners. My name is Krista Ross. I'm the Executive Director of Selco. And it's my pleasure to be here with the Houston County Libraries to do our annual library presentation, which is part of our contract that is between the county, Selco, and the 5 libraries for library services. And that contract is going to expire at the end of this year. So part of what we do is tell you about what the libraries have been doing in that year. And then we'll start, this is sort of the official beginning of the contract process. So I will turn it over to our libraries.
Could you all just,
Introduce ourselves?
yes,
Good idea. We've got some new faces here, so that's probably a great idea.
I'm Vito, from Hoka Library.
I'm Liz Gibson Gussie. I'm at the Houston Public Library.
I'm Stephanie Egbert here at the Caledonia Library.
Jana Halverson, Springfield Public. Jess, I work at Lone Crescent Public Library. And I would like to start out.
she's behind there.
I think it's very important to take a minute to say thank you for the additional funding that we received in 2024, 2022 during the 2021 contract. We are aware as Houston County Libraries that it was a very difficult and uncertain time during the pandemic, and decisions were not always easy. We are thankful to have your support, and through your additional funding, we have been able to make some positive changes in all of our Houston County libraries, and we've been able to continue working towards our library goals. Thanks to the commissioner's generosity last year, the libraries of Houston County were able to standardize minimum pay for certain staff positions across the county. So we're not competing with each other as much for qualified staff. You do truly make a difference for us, and we just want to express that we are extremely grateful and appreciative for the support that you do give our Houston County libraries. And I just want to give a brief overview of what that additional funding provided for us last year. In La Crescent, they were able to redistribute hours away from low-wage positions and towards higher paid, more experienced staff. The takeaway is now that no one in the La Crescent Library makes less than $14 an hour. At the start of 2021, our lowest paid employee made only $10.30 per hour. Houston's share of the increase went to help pay for the cost of living increases for the library's 2 staff members. Spring Grove Library went towards increased wages for 2 clerk positions. Hoka was able to increase wages to the minimized standard amount, although they are still below what some of the other libraries are at. And Caledonia was able to hire a part-time assistant librarian at a more competitive starting wage. And we were also able to hire a clerk with very part-time hours. So we were able to make some headway, and we thank you for that. We do have a ways to go though. So we just wanted to give you a brief overview and a thank you for what you've done for us.
Thank you.
Last year's statistics, and of course, we're still in the pandemic, or we were last year. I'm not sure where we are now. So we're providing a lot of services to the community that we might not have provided as much of if we weren't in a pandemic. For instance, the Overdrive, the ebook and e-audiobook, and now mags, access to patrons, so they don't have to actually come to the library. They can check out using their library card books and materials on their device. So that's helpful. I've had a lot of positive input from my patrons in Hoka for this, so they don't actually have to come down to the library if they don't want to. They just check it out on their device. So we've done that, and then we had programs, some of us off-site programs, some of us had virtual programs, so we could help, help people with education, help people with entertainment, and provide that community involvement that people enjoy, but we were doing it verbally, virtually, or we were doing it off-site. Then we had a lot of reference transactions this last year. Hoka, we had more reference transactions than anybody, I think, just about other than you. You had a lot too in Houston, but reference transactions is where the community comes in and says, hey, we need to know about this. We need our directions. We want to know the history. We want to know, about the pandemic. We want to know this, that, and the other. And they have a lot of questions, and so we answer them. That's one of our main duties and obligations, and I might say joys as librarians, is to engage with the community and offer that resource for information. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Contactless visits was another thing. I think Spring Grove had more of those than just about, well, the Crescent too. But contactless visits was also big, not in Hoka, but in other places, because people still needed to feel that safety, so they could come and get their books at curbside or just in the entryway, and they didn't actually have to come into the public building. Is there any questions about our statistics?
All right, so I would get the fun job of talking about money. So this is our formal request for the contract that we're hoping to negotiate with you all. And on the back side, the one side, it contains the actual number, which is actually what our goals are for this contract. We would like to return to a pre-COVID 3-year contract period, starting in our negotiations in 2020 when we were moving towards 2021 with the pandemic. We reduced that down to a 1-year contract. There was concern with your board about what LGA cuts might be. We've been through 2 years now with 2 1-year contracts. They're very time consuming for all parties involved, whether it's the librarians, who keep the library boards informed, and their city councils, and for you as well to schedule all the meetings. So we would prefer if it meets your needs as well. I think Eric, you brought that up at the November meeting that I attended, that it helps us all plan ahead for the future, as well, to know what our obligations are, what our revenue and expenditures are on both ends. So we would like to return to a 3-year contract. We would also like to return to our pre-COVID negotiation timeline by having a finalized contract by the end of June or early July. This has been sort of standard practice in the past, and it actually allows us as the libraries to participate in the city budgeting process and have the information about what our revenue from the county is going to be as we do that in the timeline of July and August. So it became very difficult last year for us when our contract wasn't actually finalized until the end of December to go into a new year not knowing if that amount was going to be, offered back to the libraries. So we would like to do those 2 things. And then our third and most important objective, I think, is to bring the average per capita funding that Houston County residents that do not live in 5 cities that we're representing here, and bring that per capita average up to the per capita average of the residents, Houston County residents who live in Caledonia, Hoka, Houston, Spring Grove, and Crescent. So if you flip it over to the other side, now you have the numbers. And what I tried to do here is show you what the city's contribution are. So you have those as the 2022 funding contributions directly from the cities, and the population estimates. Those are the most recent ones from the Minnesota demographers estimates. And then the cost per capita that the Houston County citizens who live in those cities are actually paying. And you can see how that compares with the county's contribution. When we say county, we're simply talking about Houston County residents that don't live in our 5 cities. So if you live in a city with a library, your average per capita contribution is about almost $40. If you're living outside of those 5 cities, it's actually coming in about $23.03. Despite the fact that you receive equal service when you walk in the front door, we're not all paying equally to support the libraries. And that becomes problematic because it's an unfair financial burden for the 5 cities, but also, as we talked a lot about in our negotiations with you, we're no longer able to really do our job because we're struggling to make ends meet. And if you look further down, we'll get into that in a second here, but if you look down, what's happening is the cities are actually providing almost 70% of the funding, but they only represent 57.72% of the population. Whereas the remaining residents who live in Houston County come in, they account for 42.27% of the population, but they're only paying 30% of the funding to support libraries. So there's a real lopsidedness to where the funding is coming to support us. So what we're proposing is to increase our current contract amount to equalize that per capita funding. You can see, so the county would be paying 42.27% of our funding, and the city's remaining at 57.73, which would increase our total funding, allow us to address a lot of the shortfalls we have in our budget. We'd like to do this over a 3-year contract. So you can see that it'd be almost a $43,000 increase per calendar year for the next 3 years. And our vision after these 3 years would be to have sort of a CPI ceiling and floor, so that inflation, no matter what inflation did, we wouldn't go too high or too low, but that's for the future. This number, I know, $128,000 is a lot of money, and yet, when you divide it among 5 buildings and 15 staff and 175 service hours per week, it really doesn't go very far. And some of you might remember, I do have copies in case it's been a couple years, but back at Bob's suggestion in 2020, he wanted to know, what are these shortages? How are these shortages actually affecting the libraries? And where? So we did a pretty extensive questionnaire with the librarians at the time. And of course, we have some new faces since then, and COVID has hit since then. So things have changed. This is just kind of a reminder that we looked at the 3 major areas where we all have really significant problems meeting the library's needs, which means meeting the needs of our community. Their computers and technology, personnel, and collection development. And I'll just address you to the last page. Feel free to look this over and address any questions, as you have them. But really, we came up with a very low end immediate need of $70,000 to address some really critical issues, and a high end of 162. Again, these were at pre-COVID inflation numbers. Everything has gone up, as we know, whether it's the cost of office supplies or auditing or electricity, books, competitive wages. This does not include capital improvements. It does not include addressing wage inequality. So it's really actually a low number. And just out of, because we have new faces here in Houston, we've got 2 new directors, and COVID has been had such a big impact on how we're serving our communities. I actually sent out an email and asked them all to talk to me about what they consider their biggest budget challenges as we move into this year and the years that are coming. And down the line, technology came up again. Caledonia's computers are between 8 and 10 years old. They're too old to install Google Chrome. They shut down in the middle of using them. They take 20 minutes to load. People aren't interested in coming in and using a service that actually doesn't serve their needs. None of us can afford, with the exception of the Crescent, to use a service that Selco provides, which is PC or replacement program, because we don't have the funds to do it. So we end up with outdated computers. POCA says the same thing. They're too old and too slow for people to use. Our computers at the Houston Public Library are about 4 years old, so we're looking for outside sources as we get into the 5-year period where they all need to be replaced. La Crescent said the same thing. Currently, La Crescent relies on their Friends group to pay for their main computer, printer, copier, and PC costs. And they've been told by their Friends group they can no longer rely on their fundraising for these high-cost technology needs and maintenance, as they can't promise to afford it. We've all had problems with our Friends group not being able to raise the funds to help support some of these operational costs that should be coming from our actual budgets. Fundraisers have been tough to do during COVID times, and so we've lost a funding source that helps supplement our incomes. She says the library is going to need to absorb the majority, if not all of these costs in the future, and the only place that can really come from is wiping out your acquisition budget, which is exactly what happened to me this year. The Houston Public Library, believe it or not, the first time in the 20 years I've been running it, we do not have an acquisition budget, not a dime to buy a magazine, a book, or a DVD. We also don't have an office supply budget. We can't buy a staple, a paperclip, or cleaning supplies, because otherwise we'll be over budget at the end of the year. I'm all about trying to find outside grant funding. I love to write grants. I love to spend other people's money. I love to go out there and get it. You can't ask for those kind of things in a grant. You can ask for a performer. You can ask for a book bite. You can do special projects. You can't ask for staff time. You can't ask for Mr. Clean So we're all really in dire straits right now, and we can't go back to our cities, because if you look at that chart, the cities, Spring Grove is paying a per capita of $82.26 per person in their town. My own little town of Houston is almost at $40. The cities can't give us this money. The money needs to be coming from you. So the next step here, I know you can't vote on this today because we're just doing our presentation, but we would like you to consider this. If you need more information from us, we're happy to provide that. But we need you to move in a timely manner so we can accomplish goal number 2, which is trying to get this done by June or July. If you're unwilling to meet our request, then a reasonable counter offer will be considered. And then, smile. But this is very important. We're unable to do our jobs right now. We're unable to do our jobs because we don't have the money, and it's clear where the money needs to come from based on math. And we've been playing this game for a long time. The $3,000 increases, the flat funding, the $1,500 increases, divided among, again, 5 buildings, 15 staff, and 175 hours per week. They don't even meet up with the cost of living increases we have for the low salaries we're paying our staff.
I take exception to say it's a game. We don't look at this as a game.
I'm sorry. I've been working on this committee since 2006. We do come and repeat the same information about the inequality of funding from the residents of the county who live in the 5 cities versus the residents who live outside of those 5 cities, but we never really make up that gap. And what we're really hoping to do now, because otherwise I think it's going to become a question for all of us, are we cutting hours? Are we cutting staff? What are we cutting? How can we make our budgets? How can we save for capital improvements? How can we do the programming, the take-home craft, things that people now expect? Are we going to cut our Wi-Fi? Are we going to cut our ebooks because we can't afford to pay for them? At a certain point, the library has to be more than just a building with an open door and a light on. And right now, when people come in and ask for the new John Grisham, I say to them, I don't have money in my budget to buy 1 new book in 2022. Is that what we want for our libraries? I hope not. I hope not.
I know that La Crescent has a very active friends group because I'm part of it, of course, and they have wonderful fundraisers. I also know La Crescent Township allocates another $3,000 that they just give to the library from the township. So, you know, they're doing their part in that area to help.
We have a very active Friends group too, but once again, I don't believe that Friends group should be having to pay for operational costs. Friends groups are there to support programming, they're support to provide extra things. When it comes down to how we operate on a daily basis, those costs should really be borne by the city and the counties.
So your computer technology request, low end of 17,000 up to 20, is that what you're looking at?
I think that if that,
But that's not in-
these figures were from 2022, but that was to allow FOCA to get PC support, which is a service that's offered through Selco. Am I, that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on the right track. And it was also to allow all of us to take advantage of the PC leasing program that Selco offers. So we constantly are rotating in new computers and nothing gets 8, 10, 12 years old
Right.
and isn't functioning properly.
So what's the number if you wanted to upgrade your computer systems?
Well, we could get new information to you because the questionnaire that we pulled all that information together was from 2020.
Right.
So, you know,
Okay,
costs
well,
are
that'll be
different now.
for-
And in fact, I know, for example, that Selco is always doing the PC purchasing agreements. They've had problems just getting computers and getting supplies. So, you know, we're in a new world now since this was developed back in 2020,
Mhm.
thanks to COVID and to supply shortages as well. But if you wanted that information, I'm sure we could quickly pull together between what Selco has for the program and what our actual needs are in the libraries. But I think that when it really comes down to it, again, personnel costs, technology costs, which include computers, but also the different services that we pay for to run our circulation program, et cetera. And then our collection development. I think we're all struggling to buy new books and movies for our clientele. And at a certain point, like I said, if we don't have those things, it means we're just, I don't know, I choke at saying it, but it becomes sort of like, why are we here if we're not going to have the resources to do our job?
So as personnel, you all are city employees, correct?
We are all city
Okay.
employees. It's a difficult thing because we're the only department, if you will, between the city and the county that we're funded by both. So we are city employees, we are located in cities, and yet we're used by the taxpayers of the entire county, and our funding comes from you as well. And it always makes it very difficult.
Well, our funding, this is just in my view of things, it's an appropriation from the county. So if we give you X amount of dollars, that is for you to use as you see fit.
Right.
It's not, to dictate to the cities what they should be paid their employee or to buy anything. It's just an appropriation to be used as they, and I assume our appropriation gets divided out between the cities, correct?
Right.
Yep. Okay.
I was just trying to say that we all have similar needs. How we would use individual increases comes down to the library
Right.
boards that are either a governing library board and make their decisions independent of the city council, or in cases where we have advisory library boards, they work in conjunction with the city council. So yes, but I think we're all in agreement about what the major problems are at all of our libraries. Would that sum things up for all of you? Was there anything I really forgot? Capital improvements would be one that came up in here as well. We have 2 libraries that are looking for additional shelving or replacement shelving. They can't afford to do that. And at 2 of our libraries, that would be La Crescent and Houston, where we're standalone buildings. We're actually responsible for the building. And I'm supposed to be saving money every year out of my budget towards, future problems, whether it's replacing the roof or the furnace. I haven't been able to do that for the last 4 or 5 years. So there you are. It's
So
not a dire circumstances.
So the one in Houston is a city building. That's city owned
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
More questions?
You're gonna get updated numbers on the computers?
Sure, I can do that. I can send an email out. We'll see how many computers we're looking at. Chris, if we give some costs, we can get that to you by the end of the week. The only thing I would continue to emphasize is we'd love for you to discuss this, put us on the agenda for future meetings. Let us know when it will be on the agendas. I have people who run my friends board and my library board. We're very concerned about where we are and would like to, be here and participate or watch the proceedings. And again, if you have a counter offer for us, we're happy to entertain that as well. But we would love to move this as quickly as we can, given the cumbersomeness of your board, our 5 boards, our 5 cities, et cetera, so that we're not in the same position we were in last year at the end of December, still wondering what our budget was for this year.
Well, at the end, go ahead, Bob.
It's like we talked about last year, we don't finalize our budget. So,
It's true. However, in the past, if you look back, and you've served on this board long enough, and so have you, Teresa, that contract has been signed in midsummer many times. Because once the negotiating committee, if we get to that point where we're working in small groups to come to some sort of compromise, once we go back to our library board and they ratify it and our city councils weigh in and you vote on it, there's no reason that contract can't be signed right away, which it has been in the past. And it takes away that uncertainty for us. I mean, I was at your November 23rd meeting, sitting here, going through all of this again, because we had heard that it was still an option to be eliminated from the budget, and we did not have a signed contract.
It wasn't an option to be eliminated from the budget. It's just that's our schedule, is that we work on preliminary budgets and then we do our final budget towards the end of the year. And then being how this is an appropriation, then it is distributed at the end of the year. Right, Carol? Is that correct? The appropriation all our appropriations are done at the end of the year.
Right, they're approved with the budget, and then in the
Yep.
next year, like Selco then bills us quarterly.
Yep.
But Carol, in the past, we have had this contract signed earlier. True or false? I wasn't involved in that, but we have, the contract has been signed oftentimes in June, July, or August, which is helpful for all of us. Again, though, if we can come up with a 3-year contract, I think that is not as important this year, just that we move towards equalizing the per capita contributions from citizens in this county. And that we come up with a 3-year contract. I think we could be more flexible on that date, but it was a problem for many of our cities. So maybe we'll invite you, Eric, to our Houston County meetings, to explain to our board and to our city council why we can't have those numbers earlier, but it is quite a process. We appreciate working with you. We're all very passionate about what we do, but we need the funds to do our jobs. And I always say this, but I'll say it again, because I want it on record. There's no other department in the city or the county that has to hold a bake sale so they can repair a hole in the road or give somebody their driver's license or any other, or a passport or whatever. We're always having to look for money so we can do our jobs. And it's a little bit demoralizing when we get to the stage where we can't do our jobs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else
The
want
only
to say?
thing I'm gonna say is that
What are you gonna say, Bob?
get us the computer
I will.
information, and then we don't typically negotiate as a board.
No.
We'll have our committee negotiate with you and then report back to the board and come up with counter offers or whatever. We aren't gonna have 6 librarians come and sit before the board and
No,
negotiate back and forth.
No.
We will get together and do our initial negotiations and then start from there.
Right.
So,
You may also offer us a counter proposal that you come up with on your own. We've done that in the past as
Right,
well. If that would save you time and energy, something for that you come up with that we could consider and we can get back to you.
Right.
Then the third option has been to move into small group negotiations. We've done this for many a year together, Bob and Teresa. But there is that second opportunity for you to come back with a different timeline for meeting this need. Feel free to offer us a reasonable and concrete proposal.
Okay.
we have probably a difference in opinion of reasonable.
Well, math is math.
This is-
Thank you for your time.
Well, we appreciate all what you guys do. And libraries are important to the community. We understand that, so.
I almost came dressed as a cow today because my story times are characters
Yeah.
and I thought I'd add it to that story.
It looked good on film.
Next time.
Next time, Stephanie.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get your hands.
Mhm. It's always that way.
All right, moving on. We're on action item 3. Consider approving or denying a CUP for Joseph Root or Craig Helke to operate an agriculture-oriented business in an agriculture protection district in Caledonia Township. Martin and Amelia. Yep.
Yep, sorry.
You and Amelia both should come up. I guess it's. Okay, you want to talk to her or tell the rest of the board how it all went?
Well, March 24th, the planning commission met for the Root Helke conditional use permit for the facility near Caledonia, and the board, the commission approved it with 4 conditions. 3 conditions I proposed prior to the meeting, and then they generated the last condition during the meeting. So we're basically here to bring it to your for denial.
So it's before us today to whether to approve or deny, and the conditions are added to it. So like the conditions of the parking lot site plan and the building site plan, that hasn't been established yet.
We have not seen the plan. The idea is that the plan would be submitted either prior to or at least at the time of the actual building permit.
Right, so this is just for the CUP, and then there's gonna be another process of a building permit,
Right.
and that's when this would be addressed.
It would have to be there by the time of the building permit, yes.
And all of the conditions that you go through the steps, I was reading that they've all been proper and acceptable, except, and then those 4 conditions that you put at the end.
The conditions basically are to make sure we met the 15 findings.
Right.
And in those, it's mainly site location, plot plan, operations and stuff like that. So some of it, there's more to come. Some of this will have to have some MPCA requirements too for the stormwater management, for rainwater, that the sediment loading, those type of things. So those are all part of it. So there's more information that will be submitted.
Okay.
So I guess that's the best way I can kind of answer that at this point.
I couldn't think of that word findings, so thank you. That's the term.
But depending on what the board does today, if the cup is approved, it goes with the land.
Yes.
So
yes.
once it's approved, the building permit, if it doesn't meet all the criteria, can be changed or whatnot, but the cup, we're stuck with the cup.
Yes.
Yeah, see, that seems backwards to me. You would
But they
think,
have to have a CUP in order to apply for a permit.
It's
Because the question for me is then ag versus commercial. And, you know, when you look at, granted, it's an old comprehensive use plan, but when you look at the plan, they talk about a strict regulation on non-farm development with urban growth encouraged, or the growth, commercial growth encouraged in or adjacent to the cities, and preserve the commercial production in agriculture and promote agriculture as a significant activity. It also encourages the economic, you know, diversified development, expansion of trade and services, but promote locations for adequate access and expanding the development, maximize, you know, minimizing conflict and discouraging scattered or, you know, scattered development.
yes.
I have a problem with, no offense to you guys, but whether I consider this ag or commercial. From the perspective of, I know there's, and I've heard it a number of times at the meetings I attended, there's 21 farmers that bring in their equipment to be repaired for the last 6 months. But there's more to the business than that. I know that I see, you know, you want to bring parts and have them stored inside. You want to be able to fix up equipment and offer it for resale, like the truck that sits down on the scale now. And it's a salvage. All right, but you also mentioned retail sales of a motor that you sold to somebody in Nebraska. So is it, you know, salvage and retail sales? I have trouble with that being ag versus commercial. And I know Caledonia got ripped pretty hard as far as not doing anything to help business by one of the planning and zoning board members. I know there's land available. If 2.5 acres is big enough, I know there's land right on the edge of town that has gas to it that would be available for sale. So I don't think there was a whole lot of research done. The land acquisitions for this property started back in March of 21, and then June of 21 when the rest of the land was acquired. So I think the goal was to be on the highway, not not to look around in Caledonia or off the highway. The goal was to be on the highway, in my opinion. The findings, it doesn't, they don't talk about any salvage or anything or retail sales of salvage parts. They talk about adequate utilities and from Caledonia, and it's My Energy, not Caledonia. There's conditions that are vague as far as this is concerned. You know, you got condition number 3 has 8 or 9 parts to it. So we're throwing a lot of things together, trying to make this fit so we can approve it. And I know that when something is taken apart and you salvage it, then you're going to set the equipment someplace until you can, the unused parts, the unused materials has to be stored someplace, be it out back or whatever, until you take it to La Crosse. And when it talks about screening, it doesn't say what the screening is going to be. It just says vegetation and fencing. And how long is it going to be? And really, is it ag? Then the question that I've been asked is, what's the county want to do? I mean, what's our plan looking forward? Do we want to turn 44 into a commercial corridor? Because if this is granted, sketchy in my opinion as far as ag, who else is going to want to come out there and continue? And I know we've got the old sales barn, and we've got Getzinger out there. Getzinger does farm work with his dozer and whatnot. You know, the other side of the city, you got the snowmobile club. You got the Crest, but that was before zoning. But what are we looking at as far as how we want? I just have trouble with it.
Well, we have highway commercial already, and we have.
But that's not what we're talking. We're talking ag.
Right, but that's where I was getting at. We have highway commercial already. We have parcels in the county that are zoned commercial for businesses that manufacture things. And I agree with Bob, we need to determine whether this is commercial or ag, and that's the big one right there. And to me, I'd be more comfortable if it was pursued with zone commercial than as an ag business. On just, you know, you look at from a business owner standpoint, I would see that would be more beneficial as a business owner, that you can be open-ended. You can do business with everybody then. You don't have to concentrate on just farmers or ag-related stuff. But that's not for us to determine. But I think what we should do here is table this for just the time being and to decide and get some counsel and get an opinion on this from MCIT, a land use attorney, to make sure we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed. We do have time. We don't need to rush into this.
60-day rule.
We have a 60-day rule. We could do that. I'm all for business. I'm all for expanding business in the county, whether it be in the city. When it gets out to the ag, that's where we got to be a little more careful. And so that's just my 2 cents worth. You know, like the conditions here. I mean, condition 4, how do you even release that one? I don't know if that's even possible. So, you know, I have some questions on that one.
The 60-day rule. Are we talking 60 or 120?
It's been extended.
It's been extended, so it's.
To 120.
120 now?
We have, I think you have to make a decision by the end of May.
Okay.
Now, I know that delays things, but we don't have to wait till the end of May.
No.
I think we could just get, I would like to see us get some counsel on it. And you know, like I said, I'm not against what this business wants to do. I just want to make sure it's in the right category.
Well, we did talk about the fact that we could ask for a rezoning, it's commercial. But then the people I talked to said they didn't want that in period, no
Well,
matter what it was zoned, which kind of, you know, but they still have the right to apply for rezoning as commercial.
And we had looked at that as an option up front as well.
Okay,
So you can.
Just to be
rezone
a-
ag to commercial.
I'm sorry.
They can propose it, sure.
The reasons to denying it just because they don't want it, period, that's,
I know.
that's not really a good enough reason, you know, we have guidelines we need to follow in the ordinances, and we just can't stop something because, you know, somebody doesn't want it to happen. We have to have good, solid reasons why,
Right.
and it's got to be in the findings, you know, so.
We gotta kind of follow our ordinances too for now. I mean, we can't until we get something done there and changing them. We can't go out of our bounds. I mean. So what do we want to do? Do we want to push through and see if we want to give them the cup for now?
Well, once we go down that road, then it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
But if we follow the 120-day rule, we have time to research this a little bit more to whether we want to ask for rezoning for commercial as a, or conditional use permit. I don't know. I'm
Well,
just talking.
there's options to look at, and you know, and it wouldn't hurt to get some counsel to, because the others have counsel, so I mean, we need to probably do the same, so I think we need to take a step back here and be careful and make sure we do this right. This does not reflect either way of or for or against, it's just we want to make sure we get this right within our ordinance.
I tend to lean towards the rezoning towards commercial as it's a business that could go beyond what they're establishing here, and how do we govern it or control it? We don't need to control it, but I look at making it a commercial property possibly. But I agree that maybe we should take a deep breath and get some counsel and table this for the moment till we get things correct. Because once we establish it, it's something that stays. It doesn't get changed around when new owners come along or whatever changes. It's something that's permanent.
Well, I guess I just want to say though, if these guys were to sell and new owners come in, the new owners are stuck under their CUP and everything that was granted in the CUP. If they want to change any part of the business, they have to come back in and amend their CUP or ask for a different use for the land.
Okay.
It's exclusive to the existing footprint.
But what if, you know, business changes and the current customer or the CUP holder has to change with the times with their business?
We've done amendments to CUPs for kind of similar situations, I guess, as well. I mean, consider like campgrounds, you know, originally everybody just had tent sites. Well, now nobody wants to tent camp anymore, so we look at cabins and or bringing RV parking in and adding to those facilities. So we would bring them in and amend their CUPs to be relevant to what they're actually doing now.
The one thing that a little bit unique about what you're getting at is that this is a footprint of the building. And it isn't if they were expanding and the building was getting bigger, then there's control for that.
Well, right, any expansion would require another CUP or permit, yeah.
So if we go to commercial, we lose all control. They can have a junkyard, they can have a.
Well, the
shit.
junkyard-
No,
the junkyard,
no.
that one, and Minnesota DOT also applies there.
Okay.
Well, those are things we all need to take a step back and look at the options here. And so, you know, if the DOT gets involved,
Sure, I'm not.
yep. And so, I mean, I think it wouldn't hurt to take a little time here to look at all those avenues, and we might come back here with the same thing. Who knows? We don't know. So that's what I'm proposing, that we table this until we get some more, look at this some more in depth.
My only thing is what is commercial, what is ag? We talk about rezoning it to commercial. It's a spot zone for this particular operation. Somebody 2 miles down the road wants to do something commercial. Another spot zone if we want to do something like that. Now, I'm not against expansion and growth and business and more jobs. But I'm also, the comp use plan talks about protecting ag land. And that should be the ag line along Highway 44, 76, 16, as well as what's out in the townships. Now, the township didn't have any issue with this facility in itself. Planning and zoning board didn't have any issue with it. My issue is just only what is ag? And it goes to what you said, things change. So all of a sudden, it's going to become more of a salvage and retail operation on the internet nationwide. Are we going to change for that? If we give them if we spot zone, we have no control over what happens. With the ag, at least you've got the cup that you
But
can control.
do we want control of how the people do their business? I don't know if we want that much
I
control.
think we want control over what type of business and what it's going to mean to the community, what it's going to mean to the ag land and the appearance of Houston County.
Well, like the condition number 4, permittee shall supply customer transactions records annually to the zoning environmental service department to ensure primary activities are agriculture.
Do we have enough staff that we can go through thousands of receipts? That's kind of goofy.
And I've talked to Caledonia Township too, and that's their main concern, what you brought up, Bob, is whether it's ag or it's commercial. That they're teetering on that, so.
I like the idea of tabling it till we research this a little further.
Well, somebody want to either make a motion to approve the cup or to table it? So we should maybe move on here.
Well, I don't know if we need a motion. I guess I can make a motion to table it for now and have further review. And come up in a timely manner to come back to this for action.
And the deadline for that action would be within
Well-
120 days, is that?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, I don't recall exactly, the application came in around the 1st of February, so I think when I looked at it, you have to make a decision by the end of it.
And that should give us plenty of time, that's,
Well, okay, the end of May or it's approved.
Or what?
It's approved.
Yeah, right.
right.
If we don't make a decision, it's
Automatic.
It's automatic, right? So we're not gonna drag our feet here. We gotta
No,
do.
I'm not, I'm just making
Yeah,
sure.
no,
you're-
I know. Yep. We gotta do something here, so.
okay.
So is that a motion, Eric, then to table it?
I'll make that a motion to table it and have further review and council.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second to table this to get further information on the zoning of it. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 to table it.
We'll look for guidance from you guys then as far as we want.
Okay.
MCT.
Let's start digging.
That's what next.
Yep.
Ready, stepping up. All right, let's get going on here. Number 4. Consider awarding a low bid for the chloride from Envirotech Services Incorporated. Brian.
So every year we go out for liquid calcium chloride quotes. This year we received 2 bids. Envirotech Services and Northern Salt. Envirotech Services was the low quote. So the total, we have 57,000 estimated gallons, so an estimated cost of $71,250. This is for the county, cities, townships, every place we put down liquid chloride. We had 70,000 in the budget, so it's slightly over the budget, but the county's portion of this is roughly 21,975 gallons, which equates to $27,787.50. So price is up from last year. Most products we're seeing coming in at about 15% over last year's costs. This is a little bit above that, but still pretty much right on what we budgeted.
How much more?
For the cost for this year. I believe this year is about 20%, just over 20% increase over last year's cost. So we budgeted 70,000, the total estimate is 71,250. And we have been cutting back on where and how much chloride goes down in the county, trying to squeeze down what we apply to the county system to keep it down. We can, we're not obligated to purchase 57,000 gallons. We can go under that if we don't need to have it.
That's what I was gonna ask, if you can find a way to get it within the budget by application rate.
Yep, so application rate, and then, so we deliver the tank as we need it and stuff, and we cut them off when we have enough product. So yes, we definitely try to cut out one delivery at 4,000 gallon load less or something.
Move to approve.
Motion, how about a second?
Second.
With a motion and a second to approve the chloride. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, Brian.
Okay, so the next item is consider awarding the low bid for CP 2022-05, pavement marking with Sir Lions a Lot LLC. So we received 3 quotes or 3 bids on this one. The low bid was $102,655.41. Our budgeted amount for this year was $120,000, so we're $17,344 under, or $344 under our budget. This is primarily striping all of the road center lines, the white paint within municipalities, and then we have a few roadways that will do the fog lights as well.
That's the whole county?
And be essentially all the center line in the entire county, fog lines on a select number of roadways, and then all of the urbanized areas for the white. So the crosswalks.
Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second. Discussion?
Was there any, are we gonna stripe Wildcat ourselves or are they gonna do it?
So nope, so that's actually gonna be in the next bid.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
There it
6.
is.
Okay, yep, so the next set of bids we have is for seal coating. So we went out for seal coating on, project number CP 2022-06. We received 2 bids on seal coating. One was from Scott Construction, that was from Farner Asphalt Sealers. So for this, we did a base bid for the county roadways. It's a variety of roadways, quite a few of them that are short 2 to 4 mile segments. The the cost to seal coat county roadways, what we're proposing is $338,867.85, and that includes the striping on those roadways that get seal coated. And then we did an alternate bid for Wildcat Park to seal coat the entrance road coming in and to add some pavement marking at the ramps going down, the boat ramps off the main boat ramp. That's 75 feet of paint, 4 lines of 75 feet long, so 1 on each side of each ramp. So the cost of the Wildcat portion would be $7,273.20. So, and that's, again, the low quote was from Scott Construction. So budgeted for seal coat for the highway system, we had $400,000 for this year. We purposely kept the quantity a little bit low, trying to, we know that oil costs were a little bit higher when we did this bid, so we wanted to do a little bit less miles there, potentially move some of this money over to the next item I'll be bringing up. So so the recommendation today is, we can either accept just the roadways for the $338,000. We can accept the alternate bid with adding Wildcat Park to that as well, or reject all.
Might want to make a motion.
So moved.
Are you moving for everything or?
That'd be both of them, I think.
I make a motion to approve the seal coat for the highway portion and the Wildcat portion.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to do the seal coating. More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Consider warning a little bit for shouldering of Burning Rock, Brian.
So we bid out shouldering project CP-2022-01. So we received one bid for shouldering this year from Bruning Rock Products, $298,452, or sorry, our estimate was $298,452. The quote came in, or the bid came in at $297,493.81. So that single bid came in pretty much right on our estimated cost. What I would like to do for this is not just make a recommendation to approve Bruning Rock Products for this quote, is I would like to get authority to overrun the quantity by up to 20%. And budget, we had $300,000 in the budget for the maintenance rocks. So the original quote came in here right on our budget, right on our estimate. But on our seal coat, the quote came in $61,000 under our budget for the seal coat line item. So essentially what I'm asking for is to overrun the maintenance rock by up to 20%. So we're shifting that money within our county projects line item from seal coat to maintenance rock, so we can spend up to $360,000 on shouldering.
So
I'll add a few extra roadways in.
The 20% overrun would be for shouldering
Yes.
or everything, any kind of maintenance route.
Shoulder. So we'll, so what we try to do is shoulder half of our roadways each year. With what we did last year, we only did a third of the shoulders. We didn't get half done. And with the quantity for this year at the 300,000 will be again less than half. And then the remainder we don't do, we'll just pull shoulders to adding rocks. So adding this additional 20% will get us closer to that halfway mark for this year.
I make a motion, we accept the amount of $297,493.81 for shouldering and the overrun of 20%. I feel it's,
Yes.
I feel it's an important, very important.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second.
This is applied, correct? At this price, that they apply it to this. Or is that our equipment?
Yeah, so it's combination. So they do a lot of the trucking and the hauling, and we do provide some
Packing.
equipment and
Okay,
You do the
yeah, so
packing.
we bring the roller out there. So we'll do some watering and some rolling. They do the hauling and the initial placement.
distribution, they put it on, we just pack it down. And this will help us get back online of our half per year.
yes, this gets us close where I think we'll be close enough where next year we can go back to doing road surface aggregates instead of shoulder. That's my goal.
Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 8, consider 2 options regarding the CRP related to the airport contract and approve the resolution 22-24 to authorize board chairman and county auditor signatures as necessary to execute this USDA FSA required document.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, last week, the county board approved the purchase of the land from Urban Barth right next to the airport for future airport expansion for primarily hangars. We knew that part of that land was within CRP, but we didn't have the cost of what it would take for the county to get out of CRP or what the exact expiration of that. We knew that it was roughly 5 years remaining, but we hadn't seen that contract due to kind of all the different paperwork with the request for information and signatures needed for everything. It just took us longer, but we didn't want to hold up the land purchase. So since that meeting, what we have worked with the FSA to determine is that there's approximately 1.08 acres of that 7.93 acres that we purchased that is within an existing CRP contract. That contract expires on September 30th of 2027. So either the county can leave that land alone, keep it undisturbed for the next, till September 2027. And maintain it within the CRP agreement requirements as part of our obligations to do that, or we can considering buying out of the existing CRP contract. The approximate cost is $1,278.29. That amount changes by the day because it does have interest that's factored into that. So it changes by, I can't remember, 50 cents per day roughly. So we can buy out of that contract. Doesn't mean that we need to disturb anything after that point, but then we don't have the CRP obligations. Out of that cost, we should be able to get reimbursement, and we won't know for sure until the FAA approves everything, but we should be able to get reimbursement for 90% of the contract buyout cost from the FAA, and that number might be 95%. So if we get reimbursement, that cost goes down to $127 for the county, at 95% down to less than $70. So the option before the board today is, do we want to stay in it? Do we want to get out? And then either way, there's paperwork that's going to be required that someone at the county needs to sign, and whether that becomes, if we want to authorize myself or the board chair, and the request here is to authorize the board chair to sign the paperwork as needed.
Seems like it would make more sense to buy out the CRP contract.
Seems to be because, even if we don't, either we gotta mow it, maintain it, either as the owner of it or under the CRP. And if we do it under the CRP, we got their restrictions. The buyout seems to be the way to go.
Yeah,
And then we can change, maybe things will improve and we end up doing something to it. And before it was 27s.
And it is reimbursed 90%.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention is that, so being a government agency, we don't get any yearly payment on that land to remain in it as well either. So there is no payment benefit to the county to stay in.
Well, you gave us 2 options here. We need to choose which option we want.
Need to choose which option.
I thought.
Yeah, and then my recommendation is to have where we can have the board chairman sign all the paperwork that's needed as we go through that.
I move to authorize the buyout of the CRP contract and authorize signatures as needed.
From the board chair.
From the board chair and other people, whoever needs, you signed, I suppose, Sam signs it, authorize signatures.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, thanks, Brian. Consider forming an address committee in order to address unique issues that have arisen with the county's address system. Consider assigning 2 commissioners to an addressing committee. Consider appointing a county surveyor, Eric Smith, as addressing official. Eric.
Morning, everyone.
Yes.
I think there's 2 options also here today. Both have been kind of floated by the applicable players that deal with addresses. Previously, the GIS person would administer that ordinance. For example, one of the issues that came up recently was the extension of Larson Road in Catana Township. It would be, I think, beneficial to have one person responsible for making decisions whether or not to extend a road for the sake of addressing. We had additional cabins looking for addresses at the end of a dead end. I think either having an addressing official, one person responsible for those actions, or having a committee formed to discuss when things come up would be a good thing for us. Do you have any questions?
So the 2 options is to have just one person, you,
Yeah, or have a committee.
or have a committee.
And if you see anybody more fit than I for this
No,
position,
no,
I'm happy to-
that's not the case.
Smiling. in agreement with- is that wrong?
No, I think you're.
So do you consult with the townships on this too?
Uh,
Would you consult with the townships if somebody wanted to extend an address or a dead end road for an address?
So in this situation, I have not, I was going to tell them, was the game plan. They're not, in this situation, there's private easement that's 66 feet wide, which meets our ordinance, which is very unusual for a private easement to be that wide.
Right.
That extends all the way to, I believe it's a section line there, or a quarter section line. Township only has, they only claim to about a half mile south of that point.
Right.
The addressing ordinance indicates that if there's an extension of a roadway, it can be extended in the GIS world, in the addressing world, but not necessarily the township road maintenance world.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Right, and the biggest question that Amelia and I discussed on this one was whether or not to rename this extension as Larson Lane, or Larson Drive, or Joe's Lane, or what have you. There's a statement in the ordinance that allows for the extension not being renamed if it's the extension of a dead end. In this case, it doesn't look like there would be a Y off or an additional roadway in this location, so we felt that extending that named center line was the appropriate method. Is not all addressed roads are publicly maintained. Traditionally, lanes are private. I think in the idea that if I were the addressing official, bigger projects such as the replacement of township road signs, 911 signs, addressing all the cemeteries would come before land use and be addressed on a ad hoc is the wrong word, I suppose, in that situation, but case by case basis.
And in that capacity, from the addressing point of view, then this is E911 and all of that. I mean, it'll all coordinate.
I believe so. Our current ordinance stipulates that there's an addressing official who is the E911 coordinator to operate in that capacity to administer those rules changes. Currently, we don't have anybody or anybody named.
Then the question is, do we want a commissioner or commissioners involved with it, or just?
I think so.
Well, I was thinking like the land use appointed commissioners could be on the committee with you to, right?
Should this just be part of land use?
Yeah.
And if we have an addressing official, it could be a part of land use. But if we would like to address issues that come up in a collaborative sense, maybe we should have a larger committee. Not necessarily meeting monthly, but as issues arise.
As needed.
As needed is what I would be thinking.
Right.
And that's where the land use committee two designated people would be part of that.
We could have, yeah, right, as the commissioners, but if we wanted to have others, but
Would you like me to take care of the issues, or should we take care of them collaboratively as a committee?
you could take care of the easy ones if there's some. that's- Can we do it that way? Kind of like a in between? You know, if it's something simple, we don't need to be, you know,
Involve everyone. The extension of Larson Road, for instance.
Right.
that would be considered a simple one.
I would think if we went.
As long as the townships are contacted and there's an understanding of that, that doesn't mean your maintenance goes to there now. It stays right here.
Strictly naming and numbering. And that's where, now do you coordinate with the E911 person, or is that?
I talked extensively with Mark Olson before we make any changes.
You know, you had a minimum maintenance road and somebody built at the end of that, and the township doesn't want to keep the road up. What do we do with that driveway?
I think I've got different hands. As an addressing GIS person, I'd say that's that could be a named road, much like all the lanes in Houston County. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be maintained by the township. But there, Google Maps will be able to take you there. We'll have an address at the end of it. We can get EMS services there. Hopefully, we've got a wide enough corridor and something that can be traveled, whether that's the responsibility of the landowners or the township.
I know in the past years, you would call the town, your guy that worked in your spot before would call the township and ask us if we had any suggestions on what we wanted to name this new road. And we'd say, talk to the person building back there and you can decide that. We didn't really care because up to the landowner, but that's what we did.
Well,
It's in most cases
it's-
that works out.
It's up to the township to name the road because of the E91 system, so there's not like two roads named the same in the county.
I think it comes to, approval by that addressing official.
Right. It'd be
Yeah,
usually,
you could just call up, Wilmington and say, hey, there's a dead end road, we want to name it this, and they say, no problem, go for it, it's done deal.
I just have a concern that we need to have his input more so than the township, that we don't need duplicate names of roads. I see in a couple of places, if you don't, well, an example is in Winona County, there's a road that's got this name and La Crescent Township has the same name. And so I looked at the address and I said, that number's way too big for being our area, so we can't change Winona County, but I'm just bringing up that we don't want duplicates.
And absolutely, and all those are kind of outlined in the ordinance, but having a person to administer that ordinance or a committee to, make these decisions, I think.
I think you should be in charge of that. So we need to make a motion to have him in charge, or what do we want, how do we want to handle this?
well, we gotta decide whether, appoint Eric as the county surveyor, as the addressing official. And whether to consider adding,
Now, it kind of says that right under number 5 of the ordinance here. Addressing official shall mean the Houston County official designated or appointed by the commissioners to administer the content of the ordinance. For the purpose of this ordinance, addressing official shall be the county E911 coordinator in conjunction with commissioners. So we're really just designated our surveyor to be the addressing official.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody on board with that?
That's fine.
What was the previous motion?
Well, we haven't made one.
We haven't made one yet.
Just gonna wait and see what we're gonna have.
Well, I make a motion, we appoint Eric Schmidt as our addressing official for 911.
Okay, I'll second it. Any more discussion? All in
And
favor, say aye.
there's no consideration about the committee. We'll just leave it as is for now.
And then big issues will be operated through land use.
Gotcha.
I want that in my motion, that big issues will be addressed through land use by the appointed commissioners.
I'm starting to get.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good job, bud.
Thank you.
Cheryl, you're next.
You got a new piece of paper to scribble on, huh?
Yep.
Other one was looking pretty bad.
It's a little cleaned up.
Yeah.
You know, we still have work to do. I don't have a copy of it.
Do
you want mine for now?
Wanted to just go through here. Just through the list. So the vaccine clinics we paid, the highway projects, there's stars by them because they are included as a budget item. The radios in the sheriff's office, the surveyor's equipment. We had originally designated $29,000 in the budget that was going to be coming from ARPA funds. We have a quote. It is actually for $33,000, good until April 15th, after which time it increases by 20%.
So we need to take action on that.
So we would need to approve that today if you were going to do that. I don't have any more solid numbers on any of the other projects that have been talked about. Wildcat Building, anything for Dr. Park. If we're looking at, you know, basically all the things that say possible allocation that don't have an allocated amount are things that would need to be discussed and have some more solid costs coming in. We did receive the request from Ability Building Center for the 40,000 as we had appropriated to Able and ICANN.
So those two would need, the ABC Ability Building Center would need to be approved today also.
If you were going to.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be today, but it's the
Oh, the other one
request.
had to be today. Okay.
The survey.
The surveyor has to be today. I believe Tess will be requesting approval for the bathrooms downstairs at next week's meeting.
We don't have an estimate on that yet, though.
That's the 100,000. Other side.
Have you seen any numbers on that?
But I guess we were assuming it was going to run around $100,000.
Okay.
The work that's done down there, the bathrooms where they are was actually a vault originally.
So, yes.
It's secure then,
Yeah, it should be quiet.
but makes it a lot of work to get
Yeah.
that.
It makes it.
I mean, that's a lot of work to get that expanded.
Mhm.
Are they doing anything with the upper bathrooms or not?
No, I think it'll just be that will be the
ADA one.
the ADA compliant.
Gonna put indoors.
I mean, $100,000 per pop, you probably can't go everywhere
Mhm.
unless you want to. That would be where you'd want to spend some of your money.
But that one, we're waiting for the quotes to come in on. We're just estimating
proposals, yeah.
100,000.
For quotations.
Okay.
So as of right now, we spent
1 million.
1.8 or 1.79.
1.821 and so leaving the balance of 1.791 taken from.
Okay.
But we actually. That doesn't include an adjustment for anything to do with the parking lot, the drainage. That's all in the possible allocation.
That's in the 2,653. 2,653.
And we have a total of what,
3,612.
3,612, okay.
Let me ask you a question. We had the presentation today from the library. Would library computers qualify for something like this?
Do a little reading.
I would think so. Because of, that could be considered COVID related. Because of the, they were shut down, it would be. I was thinking along the same lines as if we could put it in a one-time injection of some money towards their technology to help them with.
Let's see what the price information is that they bring.
Right.
Right, I mean, that's why I asked for it. I'm just curious if it would actually qualify.
Well, they're asking for a contract for 3 years.
Right.
With that
And if-
increase of
Increase, but if we
42,000
go
a year.
and give them something to take care of.
That would be
the
separate.
need,
It would
Separate.
be, separate. It'd be just a one-time
Yeah,
injection. It wouldn't be tied to the contract or
Just like the 40,000.
appropriation that we give them.
That's what I want to clarify, that this would be a one-time thing.
mhm.
But what we could do is give them ample amount to get updated, so we.
Which
get the
in
computers.
turn would help in the contract.
Just
Exactly.
Because it would,
That's what I'm kind of leading to, because if we get all the computers up, these things are gonna be good for 4 years, 8 years, whatever the number is. We've kicked the can down the road, but we're able to help them out now and minimize our 3-year contract.
Yes,
That's what I'm kicking on.
Well, if we don't have to pull all the computers out of our contract money every year, it makes a big difference if that be paid for first.
That's
Really a good idea to me.
And that's a solid thing that's gonna be there. I mean, it's-
I didn't have a copy of what they had presented for the computers the last time.
well, last time,
it was 22,000, but that was, it was old numbers.
19 or 20. She's gonna get us some new numbers.
I dare say it's gonna be more than that.
yeah. Well, this is the time to take care of something like that that's long lasting. Or
exactly.
computers ain't long lasting, but
And it could help with our negotiations.
yes. This does I can talk about it now. We had a meeting yesterday that's gonna be involving some funding for County 6 in La Crescent. And it'll probably be coming out of that when we get numbers. That'll be about 3 weeks down the road. We'll have some numbers from the city engineer as to some bump outs by the schools to minimize passing on the right and safety issues. So it's
Right.
public safety, and that qualifies for ARPA money, right? Public safety.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, it's. a
It'd be
county
the
road. Have you
flashing
talked to
lights and-
Brian? I
Yeah,
mean,
that'd be
Brian-
something that Brian would have to.
Brian is going
Brian
to-
was there, so
Yeah.
he's aware, he'll be bringing that in. But I was just saying that there's, and the way I've sounded between the city and us, probably be, our share probably be 20,000, 25,000, some of the numbers. And they're just throwing out possible numbers of flashing lights and bump outs.
So I don't remember when they did the ones down by the school here. Did we use?
Care money?
funding?
I know the city used the care money for the one by the swimming pool area.
They did. Okay.
Yes. Because it's public safety. But there's two intersections, 4th Street and 6th Street, that they need the flashing lights because it's a new elementary school and the kids are crossing back and forth constantly.
Mm.
And there's been incidents where you don't see the kid, somebody swerves to the right and hasn't killed anybody yet, but it's a real concern.
Mhm.
So we met with them yesterday along with their engineer, our engineer, their city officials and was that the school superintendent? The
Yep.
new one?
Yep.
I didn't know him.
Not the superintendent, he's the principal of the elementary
Oh,
school.
I did. Anyway, they're gonna come April 11th to the city with estimates of what come in and put it on their agenda, and then we were gonna present the information they give us on the 12th, I think is our next meeting. We'll add that to the agenda under ARPA fund discussion.
If you feel, I think it qualifies as public safety and.
Public-
I guess it's just, is there other funding available? through-
Well, I'm sure
They're
that
checking on
there's
that
gotta
too.
be state aid and all that stuff, so it's all gotta be figured out, yeah.
Mhm.
That's why Brian would be the one to talk to.
Brian
You'll
is,
have
So
it.
that's
Brian
why I
is
was
involved.
wondering if Brian was involved.
Yeah, Brian was there involved, and so
Yes.
that's, the two engineers are gonna figure it out.
Yes, we will bring up a possible
I mean, we keep it
consideration.
on the agenda that we're gonna have a discussion and
Yep.
possible.
It's discussion item,
applications,
yes.
So we don't need to say.
It's not
specifically
an
what we're
action
looking
at this point, no.
That's why we keep it. that way.
So,
If you are considering the able donation and the surveyor's equipment, that would need to be approved. today.
You talking about Able or ABC?
ABC.
Ability Building Center.
Okay,
So just
Already did Able.
just from my understanding here, Carol, excuse me but the 2.6 is allocated. That's what we've got allocated so far, a possible
No, the
allocation.
2.6 is possible allocation.
That's what I mean,
There's
possible
really been
allocation.
no, you know.
Right. The allocated of 1.821 is what we've already allocated so
Right,
far,
that's what we have specifically
Give it.
said,
which leaves us with the 1.79
okay,
of the 2.
no.
Of the
Of
3
the
point,
3.6.
3.6
Mhm.
is on the first page.
Yep. Not the first
And you
thing.
subtract those allocated, that comes down to that total.
Yep.
The possible allocations are just kind of a number, because it does include some that we've already paid, some that we don't have money or, dollar amounts for. That's just kind of a,
I'm got it.
so actually, we got 1.7
Left to go.
left to go.
Right.
Yes.
The 1.7 is what's remaining to be allocated out of the 3.6.
By that
So
time, we'll
you-
have some money from, about the computers for the library. He should have some figures from the city and school district.
We got lots of
School districts too?
Well, no, just the Little Crescent School District right now is one asking for the
Bump
safety lights.
Oh, for the
And the
bump outs,
bump
okay, I
outs.
thought you meant for the schools.
No,
no,
I didn't
no.
mean that. No, they have their own,
there's different, what our percentage would be is to be determined.
right.
So we need a motion to
Wait, wait.
approve the radios and.
No,
No,
no.
That's
Surveyor's equipment
Okay.
for $33,000. And ability building center for 40,
Yes.
if that's your desire.
so moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to go forward with those two ARPA plans. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? She carries.
another commentary with regard to this. When you go to community services, where it's Hiawatha Valley Mental Health, the 14,000, take it off.
Take it off, okay.
They got a grant through Senator Smith. The improvements to the Sarnia building so that they got the money from other sources, so they don't need the 14,000.
Okay, so we could cross that one out.
And there's Neighbors Helping Neighbors that Allison had talked to me about. I've stopped and visited. I talked to Dewey about that. He's gonna check on Neighbors Helping Neighbors,
It's Neighbors in Action.
Yep.
or Health Community Partners.
It's a division of the healthy community.
Right.
Dewey's town, so he's gonna check on that and see what or how much, if any, would be a satisfactory allocation for that nonprofit that assists communities.
Yeah, and that nonprofit, I think, is directly under that healthy, I'm not sure the exact title. but it's-
HCP, Healthy Community Partnership.
There we go. So if you did allocate money to Neighbors in Action, you would probably cut the check to them, but we figured that out at that time.
Now, do you remember Eileen was part of that group, wasn't she at one time?
I don't know.
That's what
I-
we'll start with, talking to her and get information.
Yeah, they have a website online with the phone number where they have their jobs posted and stuff, so I can get you the information. where
If you could,
to
because
contact
there's,
them directly, or
there's
you
a
can just have it.
retirement done there too. Part of it. Okay.
Sandy Graves was my
That's the
contact
retirement.
there. Yep, and I'm not sure if she's still involved or
She's
not.
retired.
Okay.
That's why I was, okay, but I'll have information soon.
I'll replace
That's no big
Iowa Valley with them.
But just to find out, you know.
Any more for us, Carol?
That's it for today.
Okay, board updates. I guess I haven't had much for readings. Last week we didn't do nothing. We're getting a few phone calls about this hearing. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet. Outside of our public health kind of tipping upside down. I don't know, you people might know more about it than I do, but I haven't heard a lot about what happened or why, but I guess it doesn't really matter. They've resigned, so. That's about all I got for you. How about, when you want to start? Teresa, you want to go next?
Sure, Bob and I had department head meeting last week and most of them were there. It was very informative. Of course, it's more of a learning for the two commissioners, I think. Luke's got lots of calls. Donna's getting a lot of people requesting to be election judges. And she has to refer them to the district that they're, precinct that they're in. Carol updated us a little bit on the ARPA funds. Brian mentioned there possibly would be an open house scheduled for the new highway department in July or August, because they're really trying to clean up, get rid of the old building, pave it, et cetera. So, because I did get a call asking when it was going to be. People are getting anxious to see it. You had anything there that I? Oh, there's going to be a light bulb collection at the dump sites for all residents on April 9th. I think Martin sent all that information to us too, and for the commercial ones, they each have assigned dates that they will have for commercial use, schools and et cetera. And we got that as an email from him. And then I went to that legal legislative Zoom meeting with AMC yesterday. It was very interesting. I have 2 pages of it. I won't talk on all of them. I made a couple notes on that. There is going to be an Armor Road grant, and I do have all the House files and Senate file numbers if anybody's interested. But one county commissioner said that they have already purchased new armor radios and everything. And they said, you have to wait till July 1st to order it if you want reimbursement from the state. So they won't be able to get, this commissioner will not be able to get reimbursement because they already ordered them and got them coming. But so if we're thinking of ordering any armor equipment, wait till July 1st. So, and I thought that was interesting. They are really doing a heck of a lot of work on bringing up the county program aid and stuff, because with the way assessments have been going up across the whole state. Even if you have a 1% levy increase, it's going to raise people's taxes because it's a statewide thing. So the way they can counteract that is to bring down the homestead credit. So, you get a homestead credit up to a certain amount.
Raise the homestead.
Raise it, and increase the CPA. So, and they're talking, well, of course, PILT's always on there.
What's that?
PILT, they're still
Increasing the
working.
Homestead valuation exclusion and then increasing CPA isn't going to
I know.
make any difference.
Yeah, they're good, yeah.
If the taxpayers going to be paying less and you're going to get more from there, it's going to. They need to increase CPA.
Yeah.
Period.
That was the biggest concern with
I would-
everybody on the
I
website.
suggested that last time,
Mhm.
that should be double.
Yes,
I mean, if, I suppose you gotta be proportionate, but there's 87 counties in the state. If you give everybody extra $1 million, that's 87 million. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a drop in a bucket on 9 billion.
Exactly.
well, they did tell us that I do have that we're supposed to be contacting our legislators within the next few weeks as they make some of these final decisions, which isn't gonna happen that fast anyway, you know, but, the open meeting law there, you can have, anybody can have a Zoom meeting for a board meeting. You have to post it, publish it, that you're not gonna be there, you're gonna be on Zoom. But they're also bringing in medical, if you have a medical excuse, you don't have to post and publish. It means you can't come because of a medical reason. But hasn't been acted on yet, but they're considering that as an exception to the open meeting law. I thought that was kind of interesting, but if you can't make it, you can Zoom anytime you want. It's not a limit anymore. It used to be 3 times, but if you post and publish it, you can do it.
Is that passed or in
But that's not
negotiation?
official yet.
It's not official.
Okay.
None of this is official.
Okay,
This
these
is
are all-
all things they're working on.
Proposal.
Current
Proposals.
rules still stand until that's
Right, it's all
Yes.
proposals.
officially
Yes, it's all being
approved, and it may not
proposed.
be. Just for
Right,
clarification.
They're also, the state is in charge of requesting live streaming of ballot drop boxes. And they are not gonna mandate the payments to the counties. They will pay for it. That's all under consideration. You know how we get all those unfunded mandates. This one, the state concern. Well, it was a very interesting meeting. It went really fast, well, an hour and a half. But that's pretty good to cover every policy board. And then I had the meeting with the city yesterday
Okay,
and school district.
so the live streaming of the ballot drop boxes, that would be provided by the expense would be provided by the state for that?
Yes, yes.
I know I had a conversation with the county attorney about, he actually brought it up that he's working on that, but given where our drop box is right at the entrance, correct?
Mhm.
Gotta make sure it shines on the drop box and not people coming in for everyday business.
Right,
So it makes it kind of a challenge,
yes.
but they're working on it.
It's supposed to be funded by the state. And that sounded pretty definite.
It's funded by the state, the cost of.
The cost of live streaming, the
buy the
cameras.
camera,
Yeah.
install the camera.
Yes, exactly.
So they'll take care of that. In the
Right.
future, it'll fall onto us.
To maintain it.
maintain.
I'm sure. Seems like.
Else?
No,
I can't imagine that they'd actually do the installation. I think you probably just get money to reimburse you for.
And Andy would
exactly. I'm
Andy
sure
would
it's a
install it.
reimbursement thing.
Okay, Bob?
Well, let's see. A week and a half ago, I went to the Selco online meeting, board meeting for Selco, talking about all the different library needs and all the different things that they're doing. Where they're cutting as far as their budgets in order to save money, where their needs are as far as additional expenses. And the board, it's a huge board, so functionality wise, there's never a no vote. Anyways, so I went to that. I went to the planning and zoning committee meeting with regard to this ag building situation on Thursday, the 24th. And listened to both parties, their pros and cons, and everybody wanting to keep their options open. And whoever gets their way, the other side is going to do something about it, the way they make it sound. I went to the City of Caledonia meeting on Monday night, and they're doing an ag moratorium, any land within the city that is ag. They're doing a 1-year moratorium on any development on that land, so that they can update their ordinance, because it's 42 years old, and so they're not going to allow any growth in the ag districts until they get a chance to study it. If they get the study done in 6 months, then they can change the moratorium, but right now it stands at 1 year. And I also then brought up and got from them the application to encroach onto the city right away for our parking lot expansion on the west side, and gave that to Brian so that he can he's got it filled out. We just have to present it to the city and make sure they got everything they want. He gave him a copy of the proposed plan as well as the application. Doesn't sound like an issue, but that was then, this is now. I went to the Southeast League of Minnesota Cities meeting in Goodview, where they talked about the different projects, the different things the cities are doing with their ARPA money, the different funding mechanisms that they're looking at the state as far, and everybody wants part of that $9 billion. So what they'd like to see, and talking to their to our legislators about the cities. On Thursday, the 31st, I went to the Cities for Transportation Day at the Capitol. And myself and the representative from Rolling Hills went and saw Davids and Miller. Just, expressed our support for the transportation funding and whatnot, the need for additional funding as far as Rolling Hills and the transportation providers, that their budgets, how bad their budgets are. I mean, used to be you could buy one of their buses for $75,000, $80,000. Now it's $140,000. So the cost of the bus has gone up and you got to wait a long time. Otherwise, it was nice talking to Jeremy, and then David said his usual stories and whatnot. So it was humor time there. And finally, I went to the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Planning and Board meeting last night in Winona. Reviewed their upcoming plans, found out about the fact that they got the money from the feds through, Tina Smith sponsored the bill that got them the money for the improvements to their facility, and they have 12 openings in Hiawatha Valley. Five are for people that deal with, that do the mediation and talking to people, and 7 are in their offices and whatnot. Counseling and whatnot. And they have a number of buildings in Winona where people are housed and whatnot, and they have a 20-unit facility. Property management company that took care of that didn't do much of a job. They had a pipe that froze, and they've got 4 units that are under repair now. So they're switching property management companies to somebody that actually comes and takes care of the facility instead of just. That is the extent of my report.
That's a lot of meetings.
Busy couple of weeks for it.
So it's interesting to note that about the city put a moratorium on the properties that are within the city limits that could be commercial.
Anything that's
considered
zone
ag now.
ag isn't going to get changed to commercial or anything else while they're doing this moratorium, or residential, or, they're not even going to give
When did that
housing.
development came on? That just,
Monday night. They had it on the docket, so I'm sure they've reviewed it and discussed it, talked to their attorney. And Monday night is when they made the vote.
So
For the
that
moratorium.
they can't make it residential or
They're not
building.
gonna have anything in the residential, in the agricultural
district,
zone
that's,
districts.
they're not gonna allow it to change to commercial. No
Or
matter how.
Residential.
Or anything, no changes in it.
Right.
Well, that's a new spin for this on egg structures too. I know there was an application for a grain bin on that.
They're not gonna grant any applications. Until, they can end the moratorium next week. It all depends on how long it takes for them to do research.
Okay, Terry?
I didn't have any meetings the last week, but had a lot of phone calls on this H&R Enterprises application. I got extension coming up Thursday. I have a meeting also in Mount Prairie. I gotta decide which one I want to go to. I really should go to the extension one. They said I didn't have to come, but they just offered me an invitation at Valley High to have that. I'll talk to Lucas about it, but So when I brought up about the fact that we should seek counsel, do we need to get board approval to seek counsel, or do we have a standing agreement with MCIT or their counsel to ask for some guidance or advice on certain situations? Or does that have to go through Sam? Those are all good questions, I'm sure.
They're all good questions. I think LCIT can be contacted.
Right.
It's something that
I think
they-
the zoning office can contact them and then we could go from there if we were to want to hire a counsel or even just to ask for advice. I know Aaron always used to have a running tally with them, but
For land use.
for land use attorneys, you know, Rupp Anderson Squires.
Squires is the guy that usually talks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he works for Rupp Anderson.
I think the board would have to
Approve that.
approve. It's kind of a new thing. you're dealing with.
Well, it's not a new thing. I mean, we've dealt with them before.
I guess I'd probably talk to Sam and see what the recommendations are.
Yeah, I don't believe that we have a contract or anything in place for them. We've just always done it on an as needed basis, but Sam would be the best person to talk to.
Okay. So that's not like a yearly contract that we could use that, or it was just for that time period that we used them. All right,
That issue.
right. Yep.
Couldn't Amelia and Martin go and talk to this guy and come back with a recommendation to us?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about, authorizing them to go.
To do that, maybe that sounds like an idea to me. I mean, let them to investigate this and find out what our best option is. If we should go commercial or keep it ag or whatever, somebody's got to have an answer for us.
Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Do we?
I've just commented already that we met with the school and city of La Crescent and Brian on County 6 as far as safety issues at the crossings of 6th and Elm and 4th and Elm. Also, just to remind everybody that 19th of April is public hearing as far as the no wake zone, no wake on West Channel. And it's going to be made available for everybody to listen in if they wish. If you want to attend, it's at the Crescent Community Building, which is the fire department building. It's right there at South First and Oak. So, but we're going forward with that. Seeing what I haven't had any calls from anybody yet. But did it make the paper yet or not? It's this week's paper that's going into. That sound right?
You'd have to double check with Amelia on the paper.
I
But
saw
we
them
did
at-
advertise it as a special meeting per Sam's request, just so that if there's more than a quorum there, you can go. Of course, you won't make any decisions there. But any commissioner that wants to go can go. It is posted and it's on the website. But as far as the actual public hearing, Amelia, you have to ask Amelia when that is in the paper.
I saw it in the email and I think it's going in this week's papers.
Got to come out 2 weeks before the hearing.
Yeah, it'll be in the Argus and the Houston County News both this week and next week.
Thank you. That's about it.
All right.
Question for Brian Swedberg, if he's listening.
Brian, are you on?
Just about those radios that you had talked about.
Oh, there he is.
Brian,
Yes,
Teresa was at a meeting and they talked about the armor radios.
okay.
They said that there will be allocation for it, but you shouldn't order anything before July 1st if you want to get reimbursed.
Okay, if you can give me a call after you're done, I can talk to you about that. I know there was a bill coming out also. They're trying to get a bill passed on this also.
That's what she's referring to, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening, I was kind of multitasking.
Yeah, no, she referred to that bill that's
Right.
being proposed. Yep.
But we haven't ordered our radios yet, have we?
No, we haven't
Yeah.
ordered anything at this time.
So if we wait until the 1st of July, then we can get reimbursed.
Absolutely,
If the bill passes, yeah, right.
correct.
Sounded
Yes,
pretty
we're sitting and waiting on the bills. I know we ordered last year a couple of radios from a company out of Montana that were almost half price of the ones we've been previously ordering.
That's right.
Is it only for radios or is it for armor equipment?
It's Armor Radio grant. Is what they called it. And I do have the
Yeah, when I reviewed the bill real quick, it talked about also the armor infrastructure, so possibly towers. That it includes, since we have a lot of dead spots, Brownsville area is one.
Depends on how long the funding is available and how much.
right.
The bill sounded like it was, I believe, 250 million. They're
I
trying to
didn't
pass.
write down the amount. I got the House file number of 2821 and the Senate file is 2670.
Give me a moment, I can pull it up.
Mhm.
Another question before we go is with regard to Corey's presentation in the poll pad. Let's go by committee deal for review or how are we gonna handle that?
Well, that's,
Commissioners, can I just say something?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, there seems to be an awful lot of inaccurate information in his presentation. And I am 5 to 10 working days with all the questions answered that you received according to his PowerPoint. I've also got, I've been working, talking to Sam quite a bit on this, and I'm also going to do an informational article in the newspaper this next week to the public, which will have a lot of good information about the poll pads as well. So just so you know, you'll be getting a response to that presentation real shortly.
we could discuss it at next week's land use meeting as well, couldn't we, Donna? Or not?
I mean, we can, but then there'll be just 2 commissioners there, but you, that's fine, because you, hopefully I'll have the information back to you, commissioners, by that time, so you can all take a look at it. And if there's any questions, just get back to me and I can answer them for you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to closing public comment. And who we got?
Jill, did you want to finish?
Do you want to say something, Denise?
I just come back to the library thing. I was just thinking about it.
You want to come forward, Jill, so we can hear you? Yeah.
Does, the library funding to the city, does every resident in the city pay a fee on their taxes? Is that correct? So everybody, get a water bill, whatever. Township residents, generally when we get something taxed to us, it goes as a levy. So that levy gets spread among township residents, and someone that owns a lot of farm property is gonna pay a lot more towards that per person library fee than someone that has $100,000 out of $100,000 house living in the country. I guess that's a little bit of a concern because that's the way the waste site use facility gets built. There's farm residents that pay a lot more to use the dump sites and that sort of thing than somebody that doesn't have as much land property. I guess that's my own comment.
Okay.
Property.
About that. So, yeah, so anyway, that's all I had to say.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
But if the county does, when the county allocates money to Selco, is that
Spread,
different?
that's on a levy.
Or
That's,
It's spread just like.
yeah, okay. Okay.
yeah, it's spread out to all the taxpayers.
Let the people with lots of land
Mhm.
pay a lot higher amount than somebody that's got just a little piece of land.
Right. Mhm.
Unless you got a $3 million house.
Well, that would be considered lots of land.
Big house. Any more public comment? Okay, let's look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion. For a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, we're adjourned.